November 1999. Lahore police were busy with their daily duties. While checking their mailbox, they received a terrifying letter. The writer claimed, "My count ends at 100. My mission is complete. My message will reach the whole world. I will make hundreds weep. I will send their children to the next world, without coffins, through the sewers." The letter listed the names, addresses, and details of each and every victim, how each was killed, how long the acid took to dissolve the body. At the end, an address was written, 6B Ravi Road. The deputy superintendent of police, along with a few officers, went to the given address. When they knocked on the door, a man appeared, 38-year-old Javed Iqbal. When the police questioned him about the letter, his attitude changed completely. Putting a gun to his own head, he threatened, "If you don't leave, I'll shoot myself." The police left without arresting him, without further questioning, and without searching the house, believing it might just be a prank. They couldn't imagine that this man could kill 100 children. This was the beginning of the story of the worst serial killer in Pakistan's history. Outside the Daily Jang newspaper office, a package was delivered to crime reporter Jamil Chishti. Inside were children's photographs and a human hand. On it was written, "Today my mission of killing 100 children is complete." Inside are the pictures of all those children, who they were and where they came from. "I want the world to know what I've done. I am also giving you my diary. It contains my complete confession of 100 murders. You will find all the evidence at my house. Once you see what I've done, the whole world will be shaken." Chishti now faced two possibilities. Either someone was trying to frame Javed Iqbal, or he had actually committed the crimes. Without wasting time, Chishti rushed to the address. The house was locked, so he climbed the wall. Inside, he found 85 pairs of children's shoes, bags full of children's clothes, and large acid drums giving off a foul stench. Chishti told, "When I opened one of the drums, I cannot describe what I felt. Inside were body parts. My hands burned from the acid. On the walls were cards with notes about each child. It was written in Dari. I deliberately preserved some of the bodies so the authorities can identify them. And now I am going to commit a suicide in Ravi River." Some bodies had been partially dissolved on purpose so that their photographs could be taken before disposal. The newspaper published the horrific story, including the names and details of 57 children. Soon, hundreds of grieving parents gathered outside the house. Javed Iqbal was now on the run. On December 29, 1999, he walked into the Daily Jang office in Lahore and calmly introduced himself. "I am Javed Iqbal, the killer of 100 children. I hate this world. I have no regrets. I am ready for punishment." For hours, he sat with journalists, narrating the grim details of his crimes. He confessed that a few children had been released, but most had met the same tragic fate. He described how he lured them, what he did to them, and how he disposed of their bodies. By the time the police were alerted, forces surrounded the building within minutes. Javed was arrested without resistance. During his interrogation, however, he expressed no remorse for the children. His regret, he said, was only for himself, claiming that he had been the victim of police abuse, corruption, and injustice. Javed Iqbal was born in Lahore in 1956 into a wealthy and respected family. He was the sixth child among several siblings. By most accounts, he was intelligent, clever, and resourceful, but often compared unfavorably to his brothers and sisters. This constant comparison created resentment and aggression within him from a young age. Family members recalled his strange behavior. At times, he would wake everyone up in the middle of the night and demand they stand in a line, simply to prove his authority. He was obsessive about his mother's belongings, often lashing out if anyone touched them. After graduating from Islamia College, his father provided him with the resources to start a small steel business. But Javed rarely hired adults. He preferred children. His reasoning, he claimed, was that they worked for less pay. But in truth, he was motivated by something darker. He was a pedophile. He soon opened a video arcade, which became popular with neighborhood children. Javed developed manipulative tricks to lure them in. He would drop a banknote on the floor and accuse the children of theft, using this as an excuse to search them in private rooms, where he would assault them. When parents began to grow suspicious, he shifted tactics, opening a gym and later an aquarium. both designed to attract children. By 97, financial trouble struck. The cost of maintaining his predatory lifestyle grew too high. He sold property and moved into rented housing in Lahore. It was in this new chapter of life that he discovered Data Darbar, the largest Sufi shrine in South Asia. The shrine was filled with homeless and runaway children searching for food and shelter. To Javed, it was the perfect hunting ground. One incident, however, changed everything. Javed took an 18-year-old boy from Data Darbar to his house. After abusing him, he fell asleep. In the middle of the night, the boy struck Javed on the head with the butt of a rifle. The noise echoed through the neighborhood, and when police arrived, they found Javed bleeding heavily. An investigation followed, and Javed was charged with rape. In custody, police officers beat him brutally. He later claimed that this beating nearly killed him and left him permanently scarred. For 22 days, he lay injured and in pain. His family refused to cover his medical expenses. Only his mother stood by him, weeping at his bedside. Psychologists later argued that this was the turning point in Javed's life, the moment his desire for revenge was born. He reportedly told himself, "I was beaten until my head was crushed. No one cared, except my mother, who cried for me. I decided that I would make 100 mothers cry, just as mine cried for me." Javed Iqbal followed a disturbingly calculated routine with nearly all of his victims. He did not strike impulsively. Instead, he carried out each murder with chilling organization and ritual. After the initial friendliness came isolation and entrapment. He would lock the doors, sometimes blindfolding or tying the children under the pretext of a game. Then came the abuse, which he described in detail in his confessions. But it was the final act that revealed his true obsession with control: strangulation. Javed used thick iron chains, claiming he preferred them because ropes could break. He wrapped the chains around their necks and pulled until the children stopped breathing. The disposal process was equally methodical. He purchased industrial acid in bulk, storing it in large drums in his house. After killing his victims, he submerged their bodies into the acid, which dissolved flesh and bone within hours. To accelerate the process, he sometimes cut the bodies into smaller parts. The remains were then flushed into sewers, erasing nearly all traces. Only clothing, shoes, and some personal items were kept, evidence he seemed proud of. Psychologists later noted that this routine reflected both compulsion and revenge. Every step was rehearsed, almost ritualistic, suggesting that the act itself was less about the children and more about fulfilling his vow to make 100 mothers cry. The trial of Javed Iqbal began in early 2000 and immediately drew enormous public attention. The courtroom was packed at every hearing, not only with grieving parents desperate for justice, but also with journalists, human rights activists, and curious onlookers who wanted to see the man behind Pakistan's darkest crimes. From the very first day, Javed showed no remorse. He arrived calmly, often smiling, and even greeted journalists as though he were some kind of celebrity. He openly admitted his crimes, stating again and again that his mission of killing 100 children had been completed.
मेरे पास आज भी इतने पैसे थे कि मैं ये सिलसिला जारी रख सकता था।
अगर कल को आपने जो जितने मारे हैं उनमें से 3-4 बच्चे घरों को वापस आ गए, फिर आपका सारा ये
कोई नहीं आएगा।
किस तरह आप कहते हैं कोई नहीं आएगा? किस तरह?
What shocked the court even more was the matter-of-fact way he described the murders, almost as if actors were narrating an achievement rather than confessing to atrocities. The prosecution presented the horrifying evidence found at his home: barrels of acid, piles of children's shoes and clothing, photographs, and his own diary of confessions. Families of missing children were invited to identify the belongings, and many broke down in tears during the proceedings. The testimonies of these parents created an atmosphere of anguish and anger that weighed heavily on the judges. On February 18, 2000, the Lahore High Court delivered its verdict. The judgment was unprecedented in Pakistan's legal history. Javed Iqbal was sentenced to death, but not by ordinary hanging. The court declared, Javed Iqbal will be strangled with the same chain he used on the children. His body will then be cut into 100 pieces and dissolved in acid, just as he did with his victims. The sentence stunned the world. Many considered it a form of poetic justice, while international human rights groups condemned it as barbaric and medieval. The controversy deepened when Javed's defense lawyer resigned, citing death threats and public hostility. Javed himself showed no fear when the sentence was read. Instead, he smirked and said he had already achieved what he set out to do, to make 100 mothers weep. On the morning of October 9, 2001, shocking news spread from Kot Lakhpat Jail in Lahore. Javed Iqbal and his accomplice Sajid had been found dead in their adjoining cells. According to the official report, both men had torn strips of cloth from their prison uniforms and used them to hang themselves from the iron bars. On the surface, it appeared to be a simple case of double suicide, but the details told a different story. Prison authorities admitted that the jail's CCTV cameras had mysteriously been switched off between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., the exact hours when the deaths supposedly occurred. Even more suspicious, the guards on duty confessed that they had been asleep and heard nothing unusual. How could two prisoners, in separate cells, die in exactly the same way at precisely the same time? This raised immediate questions. Some believe that Javed, who had once boasted he was unafraid of death, may have finally chosen to end his own life before facing execution. Others suspected something far darker, that powerful people had arranged his death to silence him forever. After all, during interrogations, Javed had claimed he was the victim of police corruption, and he hinted at having connections with influential figures who ignored his crimes for years. If he had spoken more, whose names might have been exposed? Families of the victims were divided. Some felt cheated, believing Javed had escaped the public execution promised by the court. Others saw his sudden death as divine justice. Human rights activists, on the other hand, questioned whether the state had deliberately staged the suicide to avoid the international backlash of carrying out such a brutal sentence. Even today, no conclusive evidence explains what really happened that night. Suicide or murder, the truth remains hidden behind the walls of Kot Lakhpat Jail. Even more than 2 decades later, the wounds remain open. Families of the victims still carry the unbearable grief of losing their children. The name Javed Iqbal continues to haunt Pakistan's collective memory. His crimes remain a symbol of unimaginable brutality, a reminder of the failure of systems meant to protect the most vulnerable. The case raises haunting questions. How could one man kill so many without being stopped? Why did authorities ignore the early warnings? And most of all, how can a society protect its children from predators hiding in plain sight? Javed Iqbal's story is not just about one man's evil. It is about systemic failures, unchecked corruption, and the silence of those who should have acted sooner. His actions may have ended in 1999, but the scars he left will remain forever etched in the history of Pakistan.